Hi guys and welcome to the CPC podcast with me, your host Alfonso Greenbrook. Today in pod 18 I'll be looking over the result over Southampton and we're discussing the match, player rankings, my man of the match, as well as hearing from Pardew and Salou Kaikai and what they had to say after the game. So let's begin.
We're live. Club started at 1905. I turned up with the blue-red army. You know the homes, the fanatics on site. It's our game, it's our prime. Went from Ian Rector's Zaha on the right. When Soiree and Kelly's in the box, none of you man are getting inside. Nah, we're on point like needles. We stay fly so high, cause we eagles. But if you ain't CP, then you're not my people. I don't wanna hear no malarkey. I'm ripping the red and blue army. When punching sends it to girl, the ball's gone off the net like Safari. Nah, don't panic. We ain't tryna wander like Alice. We run the wing just like Yannick. Delaney and Danda won't have it. Palace boys, we make magic. Them man talk the talk, they won't back it. Nah, don't compare us to none of these teams. We ain't in the same bracket.
You want some? Let's have it. You want some? Let's have it. The red and blue army. 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 The red and blue army.
Yeah, my team's ready to show, man. Watch how we boss up the middle like Johan. We put the ball in the box for us to hit him. It's no panic cause we got Connor Wickham. Himmy's Balat, then we got Shamak. We got the fans screaming now, come on out, attack. Get the ball out, straight out to Sacco. It's skippy defense like an iPod Nano. Big up Steve Parrish, behind the scenes. Alan Pardew, keeping up with the team.
Glad all over, everything's kosher. No goals going past Wayne Hennessy.
We're South Londoners, numero uno. We're staying at the top like Pluto.
Include Jedinak, Warden Addy. No chance, it's a Mars like Bruno.
The red and blue army. 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 The red and blue
The curtain came down on Palace's 2015-16 Premier League campaign with a convincing defeat at St Mary's, but attention now turns to Saturday's FA Cup final. With that in mind, Alan Pardew made 5 changes to his lineup, but Sadio Mane scored just before half-time to give Southampton a lead before Grazio Pella doubled it on 61 minutes. A fine strike by Jason Punch and Sue got Palace back into the game, but a Ryan Bertrand penalty and a wonderful strike by Stephen Davis ensured that the Eagles would finish the league campaign with a defeat. The early exchanges had an end-of-season feel to them, with both sides failing to create anything of a note. With Victor Wanyama's 12-minute effort, his first shot in anger, but it sailed harmlessly over the bar. However, as the minutes ticked by, more opportunities began to be created, and having scored twice last weekend, a confident Dwight Gale saw a snapshot punched away by Fraser Forster before a cross by Tadic flashed just wide of the post. Mane stabbed the ball wide when he was slipped in by Tadic, and Shane Long nearly netted in a header via Ryan Bertrand's cross, but it bounced wide. The chances continued to pile up for the home side, and Julian Speroni, on the occasion of his 388th appearance for the Eagle, tying John Jackson's record for a goalkeeper, was forced into his first save on the half an hour mark when Romeu drew a low one towards goal, but it was comfortable for the Argentinian, and then Van Dijk shaved the top of the crossbar with a free kick from 25 yards. But 3 minutes before half-time, the pressure told as the host took a lead in a scrappy circumstances. A cross by Bertrand saw Damien Delaney and James McArthur go for the same header, and when the ball looped into the sky again, and an off-balance Speroni could only punch the ball to Mane, who lifted it over the keeper and into the unguarded net. There was still a chance for Palace to go into the break level when Puncheon found an unmarked Gale in the box, but an effort struck the chest of Forster. But they would be trailing at the interval, which saw Palace hand Sulu Kaikai the chance to make his Premier League debut off the bench. The youngster showed some nice touches in the first few minutes on the pitch, and just before the hour mark it looked like as if he was going to find an equaliser when he scuffed the volley into the ground, which looked to be looping into the top corner, but Forster managed to claw the ball away to safety. That save proved crucial, as 60 seconds later the Saints doubled their lead. Marchar put a dangerous delivery in from the right, where substitute Pele was waiting, and despite nudging Arian Mariappa in the back to get the ball, and firmly planting the header past Speroni, the goal was allowed to stand. Just 3 minutes later, the Eagles managed to hit back and make it 2-1. The Sulu Kaikai corner was flapped out by Forster and found its way easy to Puncheon on the edge of the box. The ex-Saintman took a touch before blasting the ball into the net to score his second goal of the season and get Pardew's outfit back in the contest. But with 50 minutes to go, the 2-goal lead was restored. A searching ball allowed Mane to scrapper in behind the Palace defence, and he was tripped by Mariappa inside the box. And Berchar was offered the chance to take the kick, which he did in style, flying it into the top corner from 12 yards. Puncheon nearly found a second quick response, but his shot was dragged wide and narrowly missed before Mane went close in completing his brace with 2 attempts, which also didn't see much. But on 87 minutes, the Saints wrapped up the scoring when Pele chested down a cross from the right from Davis, who drilled it home to complete a convincing win for the Europa League-bound hosts. So, we're now going to move on to the player rankings, but before I do this week, I am actually going to talk a little bit like about the game, which I don't normally do, and that is because the scoreline doesn't actually reflect the game itself. And considering we did lose 4-1, which you may think is bad from another out of the sort of teams playing point of view, but actually, if you're a fan from both teams, you would actually say that it was quite an even affair. And to be honest, considering we lost 4-1, there were quite a few positives. For example, Sulu Kaikai, his first Premier League debut, he played superb. He obviously delivered the corner in that obviously Puncheon controlled and scored from. And obviously that just leads me on. Another positive was Puncheon's goal. Puncheon, he's on the right-hand side, cuts in with his left foot, bang, top corner. Maybe that is the key for Puncheon. Maybe if he's not playing central, he needs to play on the right so he can cut inside with his right and obviously, get a goal in the top corner. And another positive is Papa Soare. He's, this season he's been on and off, but the last few games, sort of from the semi-final, let's say, he's been kicking on, he's been getting better and better, and hopefully that he can keep that up at the final, because if he performed delivering the crosses like he did against Southampton, if he's supplying them chances, we're going to at least get a few goals at Wembley, hopefully, because he's superb at supplying them. I think he's one of these players who will definitely get into the squad unless he gets injured, because his performance against Southampton was just superb. And I suppose the final positive is, we're safe in the Premier League till, next season. So, that's one half of it. And the other one is we're going to Wembley, okay? So there's no point being down on a 4-1 loss, which, if you look at it statistically and stuff like that, it was actually a really even game, unlucky in some instances. But generally, we're going to Wembley, so let's forget that loss. Let's forget this season, because we're going to Wembley on Saturday. And obviously, with the positives, you're always going to have negatives. And the negative was sort of Adebayor. He was a bit sluggish at times. We thought that Adebayor playing with with Gale up front would be quite good. Obviously, Adebayor came on for Wickham. He didn't really do much. Adebayor, he was more sort of getting in the thick of the action, let's say. So instead of being up front, waiting for the ball to be delivered to him, he was sort of doing a much more defensive role, which is good. But then when we went on the counter-attack, there was no one there because he was so far back defending. So, he wasn't really that. And he didn't really have any chances on goal. Whenever he did have the ball, he would hold the ball up and pass it to Gale, which I suppose is a positive. But as a whole, Adebayor didn't really have a good game. Obviously, another one negative was a Speroni error. Obviously, you could blame him for the first goal, obviously, where he went to parry the ball out and he just unlucky it went to Mane. Maybe he could have done better with that, of not punching it and waiting for a defender to header it away. But maybe there's another debate. Maybe there was a foul on Speroni, because Speroni went to jump on the ball And obviously, as he did, someone else jumped as well and hit him. So maybe that could be, debatable. But, Speroni made a few errors, but you've got to credit Speroni. He made a real big message on his 388th appearance for the Eagles. He made some decent saves throughout the game, some decent catches. Obviously made them two sort of mistakes, which are negatives. But, I'll go on and talk about it in the player rankings. But as a whole, he had a pretty good game. And obviously, all the news about Chung Yong Lee lately, not getting enough game time. He feels that he's on the bench and he's not getting played. And I think that if he does leave, it won't be a massive loss to us because, against Southampton, he was ball watching a lot of the time. I think the only reason he came on was for fitness. I think he came on for MacArthur, so obviously we want to keep MacArthur fit for the final. But, he was ball watching quite a lot. And if he wants to moan about not getting played, then let him moan, because he didn't, coming off the bench, he didn't show his best ability, which we know he can have. But, and to be honest, they were the few sort of positives and negatives from the game. And there's a few other key points from the game as well. So, like I said, the scoreline didn't reflect the game because it was a very even game. And there was a few things that, stopped Palace from doing it. Obviously, Fraser Forster, who, in my opinion, is a very good English keeper. Hopefully, if Joe Hart gets injured in the Euros, I'll happily have Fraser Forster in goal because he was absolutely superb for Southampton. If it weren't for him in the goal and Southampton still scored the 4 goals, it could have been 4-4, a very exciting game indeed. Because obviously Gale had 2 chances of goal, both saved, one saved by the feet of Forster, the other one by the chest, and also Sully Kaikai had the volley that would have gone in top corner, but obviously Forster was there to make the save. So we're unlucky in that instance because, unlike the last few games, we've been creating these chances, we've been getting the balls in. But obviously, Fraser Forster, a world-class keeper in my opinion. So, a bit unlucky in that sense. The fact that we've created these chances is good. So if you look at the game as a whole, it doesn't really reflect the score, to be honest. And Pardew said that after the game. He said that the fact that we lost it 4-1 doesn't really reflect it, and people think we're bad because of that. But if you look at the game as a whole, we should have at least drawn that game considering the amount of chances we've created. And obviously the two sort of main talking points is the foul on Speroni. There's 2 fouls, to be honest. So 3 talking points that say, obviously Speroni went to punch the ball and obviously someone jumped him as well, which means, when he went into the bounce, his hand was off balance, which means he, gave the ball to Mane. I'm not really going to moan much about that one because, when loads of people are jumping for the ball, someone's going to either lose out. And obviously, unluckily for us, that was Speroni. And obviously, the other one was one of the Southampton goals where Mariappa got pushed in the box. Obviously, the cross came in. Good cross from Southampton, I'll put my hands up and say. But, the fact that he pushed Mariappa to the floor to get the ball, to header it, I think is wrong. Normally, that would be a free kick, but it just depends on, which referee you've got. Other days, that push on Mariappa would have been a free kick to us. We would have whipped the ball up, and got it away from danger. So, unlucky in that sense. And I suppose the other one was the penalty. I'm not really going to talk about much about the penalty, as I've done in past weeks, e.g. the Liverpool game, because the penalty was sort of really debatable. And I'm not going to deny that there was contact. There was very clear contact because he got cleanly taken down by 2 players. But whether it was inside the area or not is another debate. And looking back at the replay, and this is not just me, this is the sort of, let's say, the pundit referees. So these are not normal pundits. These are actual referees who've retired, looking back at the game. And they've actually said that the contact, which obviously that is what wins the penalty, the contact was outside the box, but the fall was obviously inside the box. So some may debate that, if the whole thing's in the box, then it should be a penalty. But if it's outside and they fall into the box, it shouldn't be. But I'm not really going to moan about that now because, like I said, the positive, we're going to Wembley. Let's get rid of this season. Let's forget this season never happened. And let's move on to the next one, which hopefully will be a success. And, other than that, they were the main talking points. But you know what? From a game where we lost, there were so many positives, which are actually going to give Pardew a headache, picking the lineup for Saturday, because the likes of Dwight Gale, Sully Kaikai, Punchin played really well. But there's only, 11 places to start. And obviously we know who's starting in goal, Wayne Hennessy, unless he gets injured. So, you've got 10 places to choose, and obviously the bench. So, the players are putting in solid performances. Maybe they have the chance to get into the squad. But obviously now, that was just a sort of description of the game, really. I wouldn't normally do that, but, I thought that actually the result didn't really reflect the game. But, like I said, it was a good game, no doubt about that. But now to move on to the player rankings. And like I say every week, if you do have any different opinions to me, or you just want to comment something about the game like I just did there, do drop a comment below the video so myself and other fans can see what you thought of the game. But we're going to start with the legend Julian Speroni, and I'm going to give him a 6. So given a rare start and match legendary Palace keeper John Jackson on 388 appearances for the club, but handed Saints the first goal with a horrible floppy punch at the cross. So like I said there, Speroni had a pretty decent game. Like I said, he had many good saves throughout the game, many good blocks as well, making himself big. Obviously, he was able to grab the ball from corners. But, he did make that, silly mistake at the beginning where he punched the ball. Maybe he should have stayed on his line and let our very tall 6-foot defenders to hoof the ball away. Maybe you could have done better with that. But other than that, it was a very good performance from him. And, we would like to thank Julian for all he's done in the 11 years he's been at Palace. And hopefully next season he can get up, he can beat the record for the highest appearances for a goalkeeper. But, other than that, throughout the years, we've seen what Speroni can do. And, Southampton was a clear example. Yes, every keeper makes mistakes. And, it wasn't Speroni's day. But, when he had to go down low to get stop a shot or grab the ball from a corner, he was able to do that. So, unlucky with a few of the goals, to be honest. Obviously with the fouls, etc. But a pretty good game from him. Now to move on to Joe Ward, who is a bit of a debatable one. Some people may think he had a really bad game. I personally think he had a very good game. And for that reason, I'm going to give Joe Ward a 6. So booed by the home fans for his affiliation with their rivals Portsmouth, but didn't spur on him too much. Harshly booked for a high foot on Tadic and was taken off to avoid a second yellow. So I suppose the reason people may think he had a bad game is the fact that because he was being booed quite a lot, it may have sort of downed his morale. But I personally think, looking back at the game, it didn't really affect him. And if anything, like Adebayor at Arsenal, actually made him more determined. And I think that's why I've given him a higher rating. Because, a fullback has got to make runs. And considering we didn't have our best, we didn't have our proper wingers. Obviously, Balassi, Zaha, even Sakho to a certain extent. We didn't have the proper wingers. We were relying on the likes of Joe Ward to make these runs. And he made so many runs throughout the game to supply the ball to Gale and Adebayor. So he done that really well. And, people may say he had a slight off game. But I personally think that the only reason people think he had a bad game is, one, because of the boos, and number two, because of the harsh booking and the high tackle. And if you look back at the tackle, both players were going into the tackle with high boots, and obviously you've got to penalise the person. If anyone you're going to penalise, you've got to penalise the person who was going in for the tackle. So obviously the players sort of saw Ward coming, so he's tried to put his leg up to protect the ball, and obviously Ward's come in as well to get the ball, and he did cleanly get the ball with the high boot, but you're going to book someone if you've both gone in there in a high foot, and unluckily for us it was Ward, but he could still play for the final, so we're not going to dwell on that. But a pretty good defensive and attacking performance from Joe Ward. Possibly not his best in recent games, but certainly he done the job which we needed to do. Now I'm going to move on to Adrian Mariappa. Obviously came in for Scott Dann for fitness reasons, so Scott Dann will be fit for the final. So Adrian Mariappa, a 6. Contempt enough about how little he's been on the pitch this season. So considering he hasn't been on the pitch, he hasn't played, only played a few games this season, 3 games in fact he's started in, he was still pretty solid. The thing with him compared to the likes of Dan and Delaney is he's very fast, so he's able, when Southampton were on the counter-attack, he was able to run back and defend, whereas Dan and Delaney would have to stay back because they haven't really got the speed to catch up with them. And I suppose that's an advantage with Mariappa. Obviously, he did give away the penalty with obviously the shove. It wasn't really a tackle, it was a shove on the edge of the area. Obviously, he did end up with a penalty. But like I said, if you're trying to defend and you're running, of course, if you nudge someone, they're going to fall because they're going to try and win the penalty. So you can't really fault him for that. But considering he hasn't played this season, a very good performance from him. Now let's move on to Damien Delaney. I'm going to give Damien Delaney a 6. A mixed performance from the Irish centre-back, who was calm and composed at times, but sometimes out of sorts at others, including Southampton's 4th goal. So obviously Damien Delaney, like sort of recently this season, he's had really good games where he's been superb, and he is very consistent. But occasionally he has slight off games, and I suppose the game at Southampton for the whole team was an off game considering we had so many changes. But he did do well with Adrian Mariappa, and I suppose one of the reasons why we lost by quite a big margin is not because of any mistakes. I just think it's because where Delaney and Mariappa don't play together quite often, it didn't really work out because they're not really used to it. And I suppose that's the reason why it didn't work. But you know what? He was very calm. He was able to contain the likes of Shane Long and Manny. So considering they're quite fast players, he was able to control them, make some last-ditch tackles to stop them getting forward. And yeah, he was a bit off at times, but generally throughout the whole game, like always, he was very good. And I suppose another thing to credit him for, like always, to be honest, is the fact he was very commanding. Obviously Adrian Mariappa hasn't played, but he was commanding him, making sure that he knew what to do, considering he hasn't been in the team and he doesn't really know the system we've been playing this season. Like I said there, you can't really fault Delaney for any of the goals because they were very good goals in my opinion. Now to move on to Papa Suaru, who actually was one of the hot contenders for the Man of the Match award. He had a superb game for Palace, and that's for that reason I'm going to give him a 7. Probably Palace's best defender, who saved a certain goal with a superb clearance early on. So, like I said there, he was possibly the best player on the field. Obviously, I'll go on to talk about that in the Man of the Match. But Papa Suaru was absolutely superb. He was the best defender by far because he made so many blocks and tackles and clearances throughout the whole game. But also, where we haven't got our wingers, he sort of acted as a winger because he used his pace to advantage. He got in a few good crosses, which obviously Gale had a few shots on. They obviously didn't come to anything because of Forster in goal. But, he had these chances. He was getting the crosses in. And to be honest, it was really crucial, a really good performance from him. A crucial one to earn his place at Wembley. And I think, like sort of Hennessy, Delaney, Dan, Balassi, he's one of the names that will be straight on the Wembley for the final. His name will be on there straight away, unless he gets injured, of course. But you know what? He was superb throughout the whole game. And like I said, the superb clearance in the first half to stop one of the goals was superb. If he does more than that, we're starting to see more of his defensive side. If he carries on like that, he will be he's turning into a very, very solid attacking defender. But that moves me nicely on to the defensive midfield. And I'm going to start with James McArthur. So I'm going to give James McArthur a 7. Only his third start since returning from a lengthy injury, but looked like he's never been away and was his usual hard-working self in the middle of the park. So obviously, James McCarthy's come back from injury. He's played the last few weeks because obviously he wanted to play for the final. And he deserves his place as well. He played really well against Southampton, like I said. And most players, you can't really fault him for anything. Obviously, when he was defending, he defended very well. Was able to get back. And also, when he had the ball, instead of chickening out and just passing the ball out, distributing the ball, he would get the ball, he would make runs, do lovely spins, take on players, come up to them one-on-one, do a little spin to get past them. So, he was very good in that, that aspect. And also, he was just very hard-working, He's one of these players, similar to Kante. Obviously, he isn't as fast as Kante, but James McArthur, he's always running. Unless he gets substituted, because obviously he's a bit tired. But generally, he's always running. He obviously isn't fast, but he's always running, getting the ball out, making these blocks, keeping possession. And that's what we want of a player of his ability. And hopefully, it's a very hard decision for Pardew, obviously, whether he plays Jedinak, the captain. Obviously, we want the captain to lift the trophy. Or do you want James McArthur, who can do both a defensive job and an attacking job, whereas Jedinak can do he can do defensive job, but the only attacking job he can do is in the air from corners. But we'll have to wait and see for that. But once again, a very good, hard-working performance from James McArthur. And not one of the contenders for Man of the Match, I can tell you now. But certainly, it was a very hard decision to leave him out of that decision. But now that moves nicely on to his fellow partner and defensive midfielder, Mile Jedinak, the captain. So I'm going to give Mile Jedinak a 7. A routine performance from the big Aussie. Some great blocks and interceptions, but shattering of bad passes. So obviously, one thing that Jedinak is known for is his passing ability. And we all know it isn't really that good. So were we really expected him to pass the ball much? Not really. But throughout the whole game, he was very good in the air, obviously with corners. Obviously didn't score any, but he was very good from that. Also very good at defending corners. So Southampton whipped the ball in. He's able to head them away. And like always, he's able to get down low, make these lovely blocks, and also interceptions, which therefore he passes on. And they're the good part. Generally, his best passes are when he's making blocks. So he goes in full of blocks, gets the ball back and passes. Whereas normally he isn't the best at passing, but when he's doing it under pressure, he's able to do a job. So now to move on to I don't know whether to describe him as a winger or whether just a central midfielder, because he played different roles throughout the game, and that is Jordan Much. And I'm going to give Jordan Much a 7, and this is another debatable one, because not many people liked the way Jordan Much played. They didn't think he played quite well. But if you look at his performance as a whole and what he gave to the team, he actually had a really good performance. And people have said after the game that really, we're playing our second team, we should be able to win games like this. But really, if you look at it, my opinion, would I have rather played a first team and gone full out, 100% energy, and win the game against Southampton, but then come back with 1 or 2 injuries, or just play a second team, maybe lose it by a few goals, but make sure you preserve the main players? And I've said that to many people. People are cussing me, and obviously other Palace fans, because we've lost the game by quite a big margin. But if you look at it as a whole, I would rather have all the players fit for the final and possibly win the final than go into the final with loads of injuries, because we've done our best 100%, 101% against Southampton and got the win. And to be honest, all that would have done is got us up 2 league positions, which maybe is a big deal because you get an extra, say, £20 million prize money. But I would rather win the FA Cup because that would attract players to the team in the summer. But obviously Jordan Much, he was taken off at half-time for the teenager debutant, Sully Kaikai, and he was a much better player than, obviously, Jordan Much. But, we're going to talk about Kaikai. But Jordan Much, he done a job. When he was out wide, he used his pace to advantage, making lovely runs. He's not necessarily good at crossing, so what he done, he would cut inside or wait for someone like Suarez, who he could pass the ball to, who they could eventually, whip the ball in and create chances. And, he was a bit unlucky, to be taken off as a sub, because there was some worse players. Maybe Adebayor maybe should have been taken off because he was a bit sluggish throughout the game. But, Pardew thought, well, let's take off a player for player sort of substitution. So we took off a winger for another winger. And, in a nutshell, that actually worked really well. And, when he was out wide, he could have done better with his touches, etc. But when he was outside, instead of crossing it in, he would find someone who could cut inside. And that sort of system works well for him, because when he's needed to go out wide, he can play out wide because of his pace, which is what you need as a winger. But also, he can play in the middle of the park and run at players similar to James MacArthur. But now to move on to Jason Puncheon, obviously scored an absolute blinder of a goal, similar to the one at Norwich. Just the fact that instead of it coming from the right flank, it came from a corner, whipped in, and he got it in. But same foot, same sort of distance, and same corner of the goal. And I will leave a link in the description below to a tweet where I did actually post a video of the goal. And I can tell you that goal was an absolutely banging goal. But like I said, he scored a superb goal and was easily Palace's best and creative threat against his former club. An impressive performance despite being asked to play a bit wider, where he really seems to prefer playing in the middle. So like it said there, he was really good. His goal was superb. And also just a really good performance in all, He didn't look sluggish like Adebayor. He was really good in that aspect, He looked like he was fully fit. And I suppose another thing is, he is a central midfielder. He shouldn't really be playing out wide. But when he is asked to play out wide, he can do a really solid performance. And he showed that, against his former club as well. He scored the goal, which was good. But, when he's not playing in central, he's playing out wide. He's able to use his pace to advantage, make lovely runs. And I think similar to Much, he isn't really good at crossing or as good as some of the other players in the squad. So what he would do, he would cut inside, and that's what he done. And he cut inside with his right foot, had a few shots. Obviously, one of them was superb and went in. And the other few didn't go in. But, the fact that he's taken his chances is what we want of a player of his ability. And I suppose he's one of these other players that may play or may not play in the final. But Pardew's got to make this decision. And I think Puncheon, definitely a hot contender to be on that starting lineup at Wembley in the final. Now to move on to Emmanuel Adebayor. And I'm going to give him a 6, give him his due, because he did play a bit off. But you know what? He did have quite a solid game. And it's probably his last game at Palace. Assuming Connor Wickham recovers in time to play for the FA Cup final. He didn't really do enough for the Eagles fans with his lasting impressions. So basically, it's probably his last game for the club. Obviously, he is... I wouldn't say... We didn't buy him as such, but we didn't put him on loan, because he wasn't for any... He was sort of a free transfer. He wasn't playing for any club, but he was still being played by Tottenham. So I don't know whether it's a loan or a buy, but we did get him on a free. And, it's probably his last game, Hopefully Connor Wickham recovers, which I have heard from numerous sources that he has. But hopefully, if Connor Wickham is fully fit, Adebayor, he probably won't play a game for Palace again. because I think Pardew would rather, or in my opinion, I would rather Pardew put Kai on the bench and give him a chance to play at Wembley than Adebayor, because Adebayor was a bit sluggish, whereas Kai can add a little bit more energy and a little, he's just young players. He can add a bit of youth to the squad. But, Adebayor, he didn't have the best game, but he was able to hold that ball on numerous occasions and pass it to Dwight Gale. And that's what we want of him. If he's not going to go on and make a run and have a shot on goal, maybe you should hold up the ball and wait for someone, a better player like Gale, to create the opportunities. And he's done that. And I think that's the reason why we were quite good throughout the game, considering the result, is because players were working very well together. And I think Dwight Gale works very well when he's with another striker, and this showed. Two sort of contrasting players, the same as Wickham. Dwight Gale very fast, Adebayor not very fast. Dwight Gale not very good at hold-up play. Adebayor very good at hold-up play, and that worked to the advantage. Obviously, Adebayor hold on to the ball. Dwight Gale would make a run, get the ball, and obviously have a shot on goal, which two of them got saved by the brilliant English keeper Fraser Forster. But very good game from him. He didn't really leave an impression, but maybe we will see more of him next season. That moves me nicely on to Adebayor's partner, and that is Dwight Gale. And I'm going to give Dwight Gale a 7. Missed a big chance on the right on the stroke of half-time after Southampton had opened the scoring, but showed some nice movement around the box. So Dwight Gale had a really good game. He used his pace and his shooting to his advantage. He was unlucky not to score on numerous occasions. He was one-on-one with the keeper on a few occasions, or he was cutting inside from the right or the left, and he had a shot on goal. And obviously, a world-class keeper, in my opinion, English keeper, Fraser Forster, made some brilliant saves with his chest and his legs to stop him. But you know what? He was really good. He had nice movement, running into the box, finding areas, getting to crosses, which is what we want of a player with visibility. And I think generally a really good performance from Gale. And I think he probably would have played better with Wickham, only because Wickham's hold-up play is slightly better. And also Wickham can make runs whilst doing hold-up play, where he's very strong. He can push players away, whereas Adebayor will just sort of stand with the ball and wait. Maybe if we had Wickham would have made a run so that Gale could run in and they could just do a sort of in front of goal sort of pass, and then he could tap it in. But, he's not, we're not going to criticise Gale, because when he did get the ball from, say, crosses from the likes of Much and Suarez, he was able to use the crosses very well. He didn't head to the rim, but, he was able to control it on his chest and, have a few shots on goal. And obviously, once again, lovely saves by the keeper. But once again, his whole performance was just a really nice, fast, movement-based performance. And that moves me nicely on to the substitutions. And there's two substitutions I won't give ratings to, because they were only on sort of the last sort of 10 minutes and you can't really rate them on that. But the main substitution is Sullay Kaikai, his Premier League debut. And I'm actually going to give Sullay Kaikai a 7. And similar to Dwight Gale, Sullay Kaikai is one of the hot contenders for the Man of the Match award. And personally, I think he played superb. He should have been starting, in my opinion, because he played absolutely brilliantly. And Pardew's got to make a decision now whether to maybe get rid of the likes of Adebayor for the FA Cup final. Maybe place Kaikai, say, the last 20 minutes, just add a little bit more pace, energy and enthusiasm to the squad. But, Palace's latest academy star has finally been handed his Premier League debut and impressed with some good deliveries. Could have cracked the day with a debut goal, but scuffed his shot into the ground. So obviously, he's one of the first academy players in a very long time. He's the first Premier League player. Sorry, no, he's not the first. He's the second Premier League player, or the player in the club's history in the Premier League to have a debut. Obviously, Hira Boateng had one early in the season against Swansea, but this is the second one this season. Sullay Kaikai. And he impressed really well. His corner led to the goal. Obviously, he whipped the ball in. Very good delivery. It was parried away by the keeper, but obviously Puncheon was able to control it and whip it into the goal. And obviously, I believe he got the assist for that. But really, that was a superb cross. And if he can make deliveries like that, not from the corner, but say when he's running up the flank, and if he can cross the ball in like that, I'm sure that someone like Wickham could get his head on that easily. That's in the goal. And, really good from him. And like I said, like most players, we were very unlucky. He had a chance to go on goal once again. He had the ball, he chested it down in the area, had a shot, saved by the keeper, and then the rebound, it scuffed the ground, he couldn't really control it and it went out. So, if Fraser Forster wasn't in goal, that probably would have been a debut goal for Sullay Kaikai. And, that would have changed the whole perspective of the game. But other than that, just all round a solid, really impressive performance from the 20-year-old, and hopefully we get to see more of him, not only at the final, but next season. And I believe that his birthday is in August, but if I look at it correctly, I don't think he'll have to be part of Palace's 25-man squad until the season after next, which means he could have one season with Palace where he doesn't have to be in a 25-man squad, which means we could play him week in, week out, as well as including some of the main first-team players. Obviously, the two other substitutes was Martin Kelly, who came on for Ward at right back. I think that was just mainly because of fitness and also because we didn't want to get Ward sent off because he was on the yellow card. And obviously, Chung Lung Lee came on, but he didn't really touch the ball. And the one time he did touch the ball, he was ball watching. He just, gave the ball away, which led to a counter-attack, which luckily Southampton didn't score. But then later on in the game, he was ball watching again, and Southampton were able to cross the ball in and score. So, not the best performance from the substitutes, but definitely the main substitutes, Salu Kaikai, with his Premier League debut, was absolutely superb. So there you have it. They are my player rankings. Now to move on to my man of the match. So there you have it. That's my match review and player rankings. And like I just said, now to move on to the man of the match award. And like I do every week, if you do have any different opinions to me, do comment them below so myself and other fans can hear what you have to say and who you thought was the standout performer against Southampton. So this week I will start once again with the Twitter poll. And, like I do, always have 4 nominations. And the 4 nominations are Papa Soiree, Sully Kaikai, Jason Puncheon and Dwight Gale. So obviously this poll does run on Twitter, and you can follow me at the CPC Podcast, and there will be a link in the description below to my Twitter. But obviously these were the main people that stood out for me. Obviously I did try and balance it out between the different positions, which I haven't done lately. So obviously Papa Soiree being a defender, Sully Kaikai, Jason Puncheon being 2 midfielders, and obviously Dwight Gale being an attacker. So I wanted to give, every position or the best player from every position an opportunity to get themselves on the man of match, obviously shortlist. And it was actually, the results were quite interesting. And I've just looked at it now, and the results were different to, let's say, an hour after the game, because people's opinions have changed and people have come back to the poll and decided to change who they voted for. And that has actually changed the results quite considerably. So to start in 4th place, it is Dwight Gale with 9% of the votes. And obviously that moves me on to 2nd place. So obviously there is a joint 1st place, which we'll probably be able to work out from the 2nd place. But in 2nd place with 25% of the votes was Sully Kaikai, which means in joint 1st place, my first joint man of the match award in the whole of my 18 podcast. And it is it is a draw with 33% of the votes between Papa Soiree and Jason Puncheon. So congratulations to both of them. Obviously, even if I did have a trophy, I wouldn't, I couldn't give it to both of you, but I don't have a trophy. But you do get my sincere congratulations, because both of your performances were absolute class, and hopefully you both of these players will be first on the team sheet next week. But, I am going to give my man a match now. I'm going to do what I've done in the sort of last weeks. Instead of baffling on, let's say, about the players, because you've already heard about that in the player rankings, all I'm going to do is sort of give you sort of 1 or 2 words describing each of the players. So Papa Soiree is just defensive side and is attacking. Sully Kaikai was just his energy, pace, crossing, and the main thing is just because it was his Premier League debut. He performed well on his Premier League debut. There's that review. Obviously, Jason Puncheon was just because of the goal and also because he was the best attacking threat. And Dwight Gale because of his pace, his hold-up play, and also his many shots he had on goal. So this was actually quite a hard decision for me. And I have changed my mind from after the game. And this is sort of based on the poll, because I want to try and keep to the poll as much as possible, because this is what the people have thought, and that sort of helps people to make decisions. But it has sort of moved me away from originally who I thought. But I am going to give the Man of the Match award to Jason Puncheon, and the only reason I'm going to give it to him above who I was going to vote for, Sully Kaikai, is just because Jason Puncheon played the whole game, so we had that bit more. His attacking threat was from throughout the whole game. And obviously Sully Kaikai, yes, he was good, he almost scored, he had a lot more energy, but Jason Puncheon, he was very commanding as well, so that sort of puts him up on the radar. But also just because of the goal, and because he was the best attacking threat. So there you have it. That's my podcast review. Now we're going to listen to what Pardew and Sully Kaikai had to say after the game.
Not really, 'cause it's got a cup final next week. But the result didn't really reflect the game, I didn't think. I was a bit disappointed with the referee's decisions today. The Pele goal was a definite push, in my opinion. And he actually looks around to the ref and just say, "Did you see it?" And he should have seen it, but he didn't. And the penalty decision again, which is outside the box, and the linesman overruled him, because I think his gut feeling was it was outside. He stood on the edge of the box for a little while, and the linesman gave that, and I think he got it wrong. Having said that, the game was really balanced at 2-1. It got to be really open. It was a really good game. Great for the fans here, who I've got a close connection with. They would have enjoyed that, and they'd have enjoyed the scoreline. I'm not making for any suggestion that we deserve to win today, but it certainly should have been tighter and closer, and we could have eked a draw out of that if we'd have took our chances.
No real bearing the result on next weekend's game. I mean, lots of 4-1 defeat might have an effect on the team going into the next game.
Well, we had so many missing, but and we rested Scotty Dan today, but Connor was missing for a knock. We're a little bit worried about him. Kabay had a knock, and we're worried about him. Zaha looks okay, but we couldn't risk him today. So we had a few problems going into this game, but I'm hoping they'll all clear themselves up. They usually do cup final week, I find out, So hopefully that'll be the case. We can look forward to the preparation, and we can look forward to the attention that's going to come to this fixture, and then we got to win it, and that's what we're going to try and do.
Has anyone played themselves into contention for a starting lineup? Dwight Gale scored 2 last weekend. Worked his socks off again.
Yeah, he did work his socks off, and actually he had 3 good chances today, which normally you'd fancy him to score. He's in good shape, Gailey, and he's got a chance next week of being involved, of course, starting or definitely involved on the bench, I would have thought. I thought Addy did well today in a difficult role. So 1 or 2, and Punch I thought did okay today. So, it's going to be a difficult selection process for me. And of course the Man United game now throws it into a bit of confusion, because we're going to have to wait and see what the ruling is on that in terms of when that's going to be played.
You've been a manager leading up to a cup final once before. Is there anything from that week leading up with West Ham that you're going to take into this week, or is there anything you've changed?
Yeah, I have. I've changed a couple of things that we did at West Ham, and we're really going to focus on the job in hand. I'll learn from that experience and hopefully take it into this game.
And do you think Julian, first goal, just the sign of unweakness from maybe a player hasn't played?
Yeah. I mean, Jules is just trying to do what he thought was right at that time, and it turned out to be the wrong thing. But I don't think we can really lay any fault at his door today. He's been brought in to play. He was coming cold at Man United and was magnificent. Probably wasn't magnificent today, but he's a great goalie, and I feel sorry for him that he's conceded 4 today.
Was there a problem with Wayne fitness-wise, or was it just a break?
No, the reason I did it was because I wanted Jules to match John Jackson's record, and I'm sure when he breaks it, he'll want to have a better result in front of him than today, and I'm sure he'll get that.
Adebayor, obviously that's the end of kind of this Premier League campaign. How's he done for you?
He did well today. He's been great for us. So we wait and see if he's going to start next week. Connor's injury, who knows? He may start. So we'll have to wait. We'll have to see what happens for all our players. I don't want to talk about anyone's future until we get to Wembley and hopefully win.
Soleil, congratulations on making your Premier League debut today. A big moment for you.
Yeah, thank you, and a proud moment for me and my family and everyone who supported me so far. And this is only the start of the journey. So there's a lot I need to learn and a lot I need to take on board. So hopefully I can improve and get to the top level.
And you had a lot of family watching you today, didn't you?
Yeah, I had about 5 members in the family watching me today, and everywhere I go they support me, and I'm grateful for that. It does help when you're on the pitch.
And 15 minutes in to your debut, you nearly scored, didn't you? It was a great save from the keeper.
Yeah, exactly. And before I hit it, I was put off a little bit, but you know, I managed to get a decent connection. By the ball hitting the ground, it took a bit of pace off it, but yeah, it was a good save, and I thought that was the moment. But yeah, hopefully next time.
And it's just a shame it came in a 4-1 defeat, but their goals kind of came more because we were chasing for the draw, didn't they?
Yeah, exactly, and it was a tough game. Like, the second half was counter-attacking, and it was very fast-paced, and yeah, we got punished.
How do you feel at that level?
I feel good. You know, it's completely different to League One. It's very quick, and tactically you need to be more aware. You switch off and then you get punished, and you know that's the big thing at this level.
As you said, it's just the beginning. You've been getting experience out on loan. Do you think that shows how important it is for like players like you and Hiram and Jake all had success out on loan to improve yourselves as players?
Yeah, definitely. And like, you know, the more games you play, the more you improve, and the more experience you gain, and it's only going to help you when you get to this level, because like every mistake, every minimal mistake, you get punished for.
And finally, obviously a cup tied, but next weekend is the FA Cup final. Are you going to enjoy watching it as a fan?
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to go to the game, me and my family, and you know, we're going to cheer the boys on, and hopefully we can bring it home.
So there, now you've heard what Pardew had to say, that concludes my match review of Southampton versus Crystal Palace. But make sure to come back next week for my pre- and post-match review of Crystal Palace versus Manchester United in the FA Cup final at Wembley. So thanks for watching, and remember to up the Palace. We're the famous Crystal Palace and we're going to Wembley.